Ms. Delgado, if you'll raise your right hand, you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you'll give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Okay, we've got Mr. Taylor back up. I was just going to say, let me make sure he's there. I'm looking. Okay. All right. Mr. Crouch, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Delgado, would you state your name for the record, please?
Ashley Delgado.
Ms. Delgado, how are you employed?
I'm an investigator for the Department of Family Protective Services.
And are you familiar with the case we're here on today?
Yes.
And you've been here through the testimony?
Yes.
How are you familiar with the case on these 4 children?
I received an investigation on January 16th, 2025.
Okay. And what was that investigation or intake in response to?
There's concerns of medical neglect and physical neglect because I had missed the follow-up appointment after the hospital stay.
Okay. And what were your steps when you first got this case?
My basic steps are to run background checks, look at the history, to familiarize myself with the family.
Okay. And were you able to make contact with mom?
Yes.
Okay. Was that initially, or did you have any issues getting in touch with her?
Initially, no, I didn't have issues, but I only had a 15-minute conversation with her because she had to go to work.
Okay. And did you discuss the issues of why you had an investigation and what you were there about?
I did.
And how did that conversation go with mom?
I mean, it went well.
Moving forward through your investigation, how did that proceed? Did you have any issues getting in touch with mom down the road?
Yes. After the initial visit, I did have some issues. I had reached out to Miss Archie in trying to get some assistance to try and get in touch with Vember to have a deeper conversation about everything.
Did you have any conversations with mom about her services she was supposed to be working?
We touched base on it, but I didn't go into deep conversation about her services.
Okay. Did mom make any statements to you about why she was not participating at that time?
As far as the services, no, she did not provide an explanation to me as to why she wasn't.
Okay. Did you discuss with mom any of the issues of the children not making it to school?
I did.
And what was mom's response to that?
She was tired and struggled to get up in the morning.
Okay, so kind of same statement she made to Miss Archie.
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any, meaningful conversation with mom about appointments?
I did.
Okay. And how did those conversations go? What did y'all talk about?
She was very agreeable. I explained the importance that with him being so little and spending time in NICU, that the purpose of those medical appointments were to monitor him to make sure that he was growing and developing well, that they weren't meant to punish her or cause her distress, but they were meant for baby. And I told her as a mother, she needed to do better about making sure those appointments were being made.
Okay. And even after that conversation, was there a missed appointment?
Yes.
And you heard testimony earlier that even after that and after the court hearing in February, that mom was not the one who brought the child to the hospital. To the appointment, not to the hospital.
That's correct.
Okay. That grandmother was the one who brought the child on the 19th.
Yes.
Okay. During your investigation, did you learn that the apartment had become substantially more crowded?
I did.
And did you have any conversations with the parties about that or with mom about that?
I did.
Okay. And what was y'all's conversation on that?
I did share concerns about the increase of amount of people that were in that apartment, but I did, on a positive note, say that the home was clean and appropriate, so that was a plus, but that it was just too many people in one apartment.
Normally in a case that you're working, if you try to do a safety plan, does the apartment allow that many people in a 3-bedroom apartment?
That question is hard to answer because in my 9 years of doing this job, I've never had a situation such as this.
Okay. Do y'all have standards on how many people can be living in a certain place when you place a child somewhere?
That's not relevant to foster care. I don't know of anything that's in black and white talking about the amount of people in a home.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead. The biggest concern I had was the particular family that had moved in, and one of the adults that was involved in that, and his reason why they were involved with the department would cause danger to Vember's children.
Okay. So the family that had moved in, the other people that had moved into the apartment, they had CPS history going on?
Yes, they had an active CPS case open.
Okay, and what kind of CPS case was that?
The concerns that the father of those children were actively involved with mom and the children, and he had stipulations with the courts saying that he was not allowed contact with mom or those children.
Okay, and were there concerns that he was possibly coming around?
That was a concern prior that led to the current case that family was involved in. And then when we learned about the family being with Sabrina and Vember's children, I expressed to Sabrina and Vember those concerns of him coming around and being around the children. They said that he hadn't been around.
Okay, all right. In a case where you're looking at a safety plan and placing children, and if you were working the case at the time, if there were people living in the home that had CPS history, would that house be available for the safety plan?
It depends. It's case by case.
Okay.
That's a hard question to provide a definitive answer to.
Okay. But during the case of this, when the safety plan was initiated, they weren't living there. So that was not a concern. But during the safety plan, about a week after, those people moved in.
That was my understanding, yes.
And then it became a concern.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Were you ever able to meet with, did you only meet with mom, or were you able to meet with any of the fathers?
I met with Keon Mathis at the jail, and then I'm the one who made contact with Mr. Harris at the CPS office the day of removal.
Okay. And had mom ever given you Mr. Harris's name?
No.
Okay. You said you made contact with him, but how did his name get involved with possibly being the father?
He was present at the CPS office when they were trying to figure out what was going on. And at that time, he had claimed to be the father to Blaze, and that he wanted all the children placed with him.
Okay. Did mom state anything at that time about whether he was the father or not?
At that time, no, she was too upset, and I don't think she heard that conversation.
Okay. Did you have a conversation with Miss Jeffries at a later date?
Yes.
About him?
Yes.
And what was that conversation?
She denied Mr. Harris being the father. She doesn't know why he said those things, but she told me she believed it was so that he could gain possession of the children. And she confirmed that Anthony Dunn was the father to Blaze. Keon Mathis is the father to.
Okay. And mom stated that there's no way he's the father of the children, of any of them?
Yes, that's what she told me.
Okay. And he is pled in simply because he stated he believes he's the father?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other concerning issues that came up during your investigation with mom?
One of grandma did an amazing job when he gained those 2 pounds. It was actually 2.5 pounds that had gained while she had him. As Miss Archie had testified, she actually helped her with the WIC paperwork. And all my understanding was all she had to do was answer the phone when WIC called so that we could get him on the 4th. Miss Archie had made attempts to try and circumvent that conversation with mom to try and get this child on 14E. But because Sabrina does not have legal custody of this child, and because we didn't have legal custody of this child, WIC wouldn't do anything without mom. And because mom was not consistent with communication, we weren't able to get that WIC settled so that this child could get that specialized formula to gain the weight that he needs to gain.
So it's a concern that we have a child with needing a special type of nourishment, and we couldn't get mom to cooperate to get that.
Correct.
And the child did gain weight on a Similac formula, correct?
Similac sensitive.
Okay. And has the child gotten on 14E now? Do you know?
As of after the removal, I'm not sure. I did have conversations with mom at the initial visit, again, explaining what 14E was and its purpose, so that I didn't know if maybe she didn't understand it. So she could maybe grasp why everybody was pushing for it so hard. And she understood. And at my initial visit, she said she had plenty. But then I get a text message the very next day, which happened to be a Saturday. And she said they ran out of formula. So I had to go get Similac formula from the store to make sure this baby had some type of nutrition.
Okay. All right. And you said that those two conversations happened a day apart. She had plenty and then she didn't. Okay.
Yes.
And are you today asking also that the court grant temporary managing conservatorship to the department?
Yes.
And for mom to work services and dads to work, once found, other dads to work what services they can?
Yes.
And you believe that's in the best interest of the children?
I do.
And is it mostly to watch for to make sure the kids are going to school?
Part of it.
And to make sure that Isaiah's medical needs are being met?
And Blasiana.
And for mom to get help with what she needs help with?
Yes.
And what she will be willing to avail herself to?
Yes.
And you believe that's not only in best interest of the kids, but in best interest of the whole family at this time?
You said you were here and heard all the testimony prior to yours today, correct?
Yes.
Were you actually the one who removed the children from grandmother on the 21st of February, or was it Ms. Archie?
It was Miss Archie, but I did assist after she had taken the children.
And throughout Ms. Archie's testimony, in fact, all the witnesses' testimony up to this point, it wasn't until you testified that we heard something about a background history problem with one of the males in the house with grandmother. Is that correct?
That specific male was not in the house. He was the one that was involved with the family that had just moved into the home.
Okay. So it wasn't somebody in the home. It was somebody connected to the ones that moved in the home.
Yes.
Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. And when you got this intake, Mom Vimber Jeffries was already involved in an ongoing case with Shonda Archie, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when you saw the children in the home with the large number of people in the apartment, I believe you said that the home was clean and well kept, and the children were all appropriately dressed and clean, and didn't see any problems with any of that, did you?
The physical conditions, no, there was no problems with the physical conditions of the apartment.
Okay. How about the care of the children? Were they clean?
The children appeared fine.
Okay. You said Mom said she was tired, and did you get the impression she just kind of overwhelmed?
Yes, I think she's definitely overwhelmed with everything going on.
There was some mention earlier, I don't remember who, but some mention of a postpartum depression.
Yes, I believe Miss Archie had talked about postpartum depression for Mom.
From the time that the children were placed with grandmother under the safety plan on February 6th to the time of removal, is the only thing that changed the number of people in the apartment?
One of the things that changed. That was one of the things that changed.
Okay, what else changed?
Like I had testified earlier, Sabrina doesn't have legal custody of the children, so her struggling to get that 14E for that baby is very difficult. And
okay, let me interrupt you and talk about that just a minute. Dr. Anderson has testified, has she not, that Isaiah was gaining weight appropriately. She was pleased with it, and none of that was on the 14E, was it?
No, that was on the Similac sensitive.
And she approved continued use of the Similac sensitive until such time as the 14E could be obtained. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Riley?
When you met with Keon, was he cooperative?
Yes.
Okay, and Keon was not, you met with him in the jail, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, and so Keon has been in custody at the Potter County Jail throughout. In fact, he was there when he was born, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Right, and so he has not been the person directly responsible. He hasn't been able to be directly responsible for his child or any of the children. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and so did he answer all of the questions that you had
He did.
for him? Okay, did you ask him to be involved in any services or to engage in anything or to do anything for you?
I told him what could potentially be expected if and when he is released.
Okay, and did he indicate to you that he would be willing to do that if and when he's released?
Yes.
Ms. Delgado, Sabrina, the grandmother, doesn't have her own transportation, correct?
As of the day of removal, yes.
Yes, she does not.
Sorry, she has no transportation as of the day of removal, February 21st.
Okay. So I know that you weren't originally involved in the safety plan that put the kids there, but is it your understanding that part of that safety plan was that Vimber was going to provide much, if not all, of the transportation?
That's correct.
So the issues with placement with grandmother are, first, that she's got no legal custody and no ability to make decisions and get the care for these kids that she would need. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Without court intervention. Second, that she needs working transportation or a transportation plan that does not revolve around Vimber.
That's correct.
And then she needs to be in a place with fewer people and specific rules about which people can be around those kids.
That's correct.
If those things were addressed, is it possible that grandmother might be a good placement for the kids?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Taylor?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to call Sabrina Jeffries. Your name is Sabrina Jeffries,
Yes, sir.
and you are the mother of Vimber Jeffries, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the grandmother of the children that we've been talking about in this case. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Where are you living right now?
I live at 1217 Highland.
And is that a different address from the apartment you were in on February the 21st when the children were removed?
Yes, sir.
Who is in your current residence with you?
My oldest sister, Felicia Mosley.
Felicia Mosley. I'm so sorry I misstated earlier. Felicia Mosley. And you said she's your older sister?
Yes, sir.
Is she in good health?
Yes, sir.
And is anyone else in that apartment with you or in that address with you?
In that home, no, it's just me and my sister.
Is it a house or an apartment?
It's a house.
It's a house, okay. And are you willing for the department to come visit you and check that place out and make sure it's appropriate?
Yes, sir.
On the day of, you were part of signing the safety plan on February 6th, were you not?
I did not sign the safety plan on February the 6th. I signed it on February the 7th of 2025.
Okay, all right, thank you. You were a party to that agreement.
Yes, sir.
And since that date, has Vimber attempted to take the children away from you?
No, sir.
So up until the 21st when the department took them, correct?
Up until the 21st, when they came and removed the children out of my care, my daughter never came and tried to take the kids at any time.
Okay, or made any verbal statements indicating that she was going to or wanted to or intended to?
No, sir, she didn't.
Okay, and regardless of whether you were in that apartment or elsewhere, have you helped to make sure that the children were clean and well dressed
Yes, sir, I did.
and well fed?
Yes, sir.
Now, after the safety plan was signed on February the 6th, did you take full responsibility for seeing to it that it made it to his appointments?
Yes, sir, I did. After I signed the safety plan on February the 7th, I took into my care of making sure that my grandson made it to his doctor's appointment.
Okay, and that he got fed properly?
Yes, sir.
And if the children were returned to you, you would continue to do that?
Yes, sir.
Miss Sabrina, at the address you live at, you said it's just you and your sister.
Yes, sir.
Is it a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom? What type of house is it?
It's a 2-bedroom.
Okay. I'm assuming you live in one room, your sister lives in the other.
Yes, sir.
If the children were to be placed in the home with you, what rooms would they have? Where would they stay?
They will stay in the room that I am in. I will go to the living room because the living room has a let-out couch, which turns into a bed.
Okay, so you can turn it into kind of a 3-bedroom with a pull-out couch.
Yes.
Do you have all the appropriate beddings, cribs, everything for the children?
Yes. Isaiah still has his little playpen that he was in when they had assigned him into my care through the safety plan. Blazer has her little toddler bed, and Makai has another bed, twin bed, that we can put in the room so they can have their own bed.
When the children were in your care, were you having issues being able to get the formula the doctor had ordered?
The formula is, you talking about the 14?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, the 14, when he got out the hospital from when he was born, he was put on a different milk. He was not on the 14 when he got out the hospital when he was born. But when he was responsive, they put him on the 14. He came home with, I think, about 4 or 5 little cartons of milk like they have at the school when the kids get milk in a little small carton. He had about 5 of those. But once he ran out, we had got in contact with the doctor, and the doctor put him on the Similac 360.
Okay. But y'all weren't able to get a hold of what the doctor had ordered, correct?
No, we was not able to get the 14.
And you're not able to, without any legal custody, you're not able with the WIC program or anything to be able to get that. Is that correct?
With the WIC program, no, I'm not able to get that. But the temporary custody papers that I have signed, I am able to get that. But Rashonda was the one that went up there to see if she could get it. I was not able to go up there because she said she was going up there. She said it was too cold that day. She did not want Isaiah back out in the weather because due to him still having a little bit of his sickness. So she took me back to the apartment, which was 1223 apartment 2, South Robert Street. So Rhonda went to the WIC office. I didn't.
Okay. But you're saying you could have gotten it?
Yes, I could have gotten it. But Rashonda said she was going up there to see if she could get it.
Okay. And how do you, if you didn't go up there to get it, how do you know you could have gotten it?
Because of the paperwork of where I have temporary custody of Blaziano and Makai.
You talking about the safety plan?
No, I'm talking about the paperwork that I have as temporary custody that my daughter gave me temporary custody of the kids on February the 5th.
Okay. And how did that take place? And why was that never turned over to the department?
When I had told Rashonda about my daughter giving me temporary custody of the kids, she told me no, because it would cause the case to be closed if she gave me temporary custody of the kids. She said she was going to do a safety plan. And she came back on the 7th of February and brought me paperwork to sign. And that's when I signed the safety plan on February the 7th. I also stated to Ashley at the Department of the Children's, I guess it's the...
Objection, Your Honor. The question was, it was non-responsive. The question was why she never turned over the paperwork to the department.
Your Honor.
Okay. Hang on a second. Just kind of listen carefully to what exactly he's asking for. But so I'll sustain the objection. Just want you to ask a question again, Mr. Trout.
Yes, ma'am. You said that your daughter had signed over custody of the kids on February 5th.
Yes.
Okay. Earlier, Miss Archie's already testified that she's never seen any of that paperwork. So the question is, why was that paperwork never given to the department?
She never asked for the paperwork.
Did you tell her you had it?
I told Rashonda that I had the paperwork.
Okay. And you're aware that at that time there was already an open legal case as to the children, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the mom was already ordered to participate during a court proceeding at that time.
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. During your safety plans, was Vembra helping with the transportation like she was supposed to?
Yes, she helped with the transportation after I talked to Rashonda about getting transportation for the kids to get back and forth to school. I sent Rashonda numbers of text messages and asking her about the kids getting on the school bus, because that's what Rashonda was stating to me, that she was going to make sure that the kids had transportation to get back and forth to school. Once we talked to my daughter had recently got a car, and she said, well, I could take the kids to school until the bus is able to pick them up, and my daughter took the kids to the school.
Okay. We heard testimony earlier that it was your son that was taking the kids to the school, not Vembra.
My son, James Jeffries, never did take the kids to school.
Okay. And after they were placed with you on the 6th, they missed about 6 or 7 days of school after that. What was that reason?
That was due to the fact that we was waiting on Rashonda to get in contact with the bus bond, and I think her name was Kaylee or Kala. I can't pronounce her name. She was waiting on her to respond back to the kids getting on the bus. So Rashonda talked to me and sent me text messages stating that the kids' absence was going to be excused due to the fact that they were still working on them getting transportation.
Okay. You understand, even though if Rashonda's working on trying to get buses set up, y'all are still responsible for getting the kids to school.
I understand that. That's why I said when my daughter had got her car on the 12th or the 11th of February.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Sustained.
Who is the apartment, the house you're living in now, or y'all are renting it?
You talking about the house on Highland?
The one you're living in currently, yes, ma'am.
My sister Felisa Mosley is on the lease.
Okay. And is this did she just move into it, or has she been living there?
This has been living there.
Okay. What type of, is she got year lease, month-to-month lease? What type of leases does she have? Do you know?
That is, to my understanding, I could not say that because I do not know that information.
Okay. Do you know if it would be a violation of the lease for yourself and 4 children to move into that home?
I do not, I cannot answer that question because I do not know that information.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Sabrina, my name's Stacy and we've met before, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I came out to the house February 14th.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So with this new living arrangement, how would, if the kids were placed with you, what would the transportation situation look like?
I will use my daughter's car to get Kiara and Makai back and forth to school. And if they have medicals that they need to go to their doctor's appointment, I would take them myself.
So you mean Vimber's car?
Yes, ma'am.
So Vimber's going to give you her car and it will now be your car?
No, she's going to allow me to use it when I need to do things for the children.
So Vimber's going to bring it to you?
Yes, she's going to provide me with the transportation to take the kids to school. If they're not able to get on the bus and I have to take them to school, I will use the car to take them to school. If they have to go to their doctor's appointment, I will use the car to take them to their doctor's appointment.
Right. So you've been sitting here throughout this hearing and
Yes.
have you heard the multiple numbers of appointments that Vimber has missed for both herself and the kids?
Yes, I have heard it.
Okay. So why is it that you think she'll now be responsible enough to bring you the car each time you need it?
Because the reason why I believe that she would do that, because I see what my daughter is doing now. I see what she has been accomplishing. But before then, she didn't have no car. So that's one reason why she was not able to make appointments, because she didn't have the transportation.
Okay. And what's the backup plan for if Vimber doesn't show up?
The backup plan, if she doesn't show up, then I will have my son James to take me and the kids.
Would the older kids go back to the school they were at before?
I would like for them to do that, but if they get placed in my care and my custody, I will have them to go to the school that's closest to Highland where I live at. Either they'll probably go to Real Rogers School because that's closest to where I live at.
And does it concern you that the kids missed almost exactly half of the entire school year?
Yes, it concerns me in school.
So is it important that the kids get to school even if bus isn't set up?
Yes, it's very important.
I believe we heard testimony that Vimber did not have a working car until somewhere around February 11. Is that your understanding also?
Yes,
But she does now have a working car.
yes.
And that's as of somewhere around the 11th of February.
Yes, sir.
I believe I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. Further?
Yes, I would call my client Vimber Jeffries.
Okay, let me just make sure. Wait, nobody else had any
I'm
questions?
sorry. I apologize. I jumped the gun.
I have no further questions, John.
Ms. Riley, anything further? No. Ms. Zabala?
I have just a few follow-ups. Sabrina, when I talked with you on the 14th, the plan was for that very important doctor's appointment on the 19th that Vimber was going to come and pick you up, correct?
Yes, Verma was supposed to come pick me up, but Verma had got sick with bronchitis.
Okay, so I pass the witness.
All right, anybody else have any further questions?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Taylor?
Yes, I would call Vimber Jeffries.
All right, Ms. Jeffries, if you'll raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you'll give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, sir, you may go ahead.
Thank you. Vimber, from the very first time we talked and numerous times since, you've emphasized to me that you did not feel like you were a bad mother. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you currently have an appointment to go to TPC?
Yes, sir.
That's at 11 o'clock tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
That's correct?
Yes.
That's for your evaluation?
Yes, sir.
And do you have good intentions to go ahead and comply with all of the service requirements the department is asking of you?
Yes, sir.
Are you still suffering some significant symptoms from your postpartum depression or whatever it is that's causing you to feel overwhelmed and tired all the time?
No, and on that postpartum depression, I feel like how can they say that I have postpartum depression? They're not no doctor. The doctor has not diagnosed me with postpartum depression. I've had 4 kids. I would know when I'm having postpartum depression, and I'm not dealing with postpartum depression.
Okay, so what medication are you on?
I don't take any medication. Only medication I do take is iron pills due to me being anemic.
Okay, are you still feeling tired all the time like you were?
No, sir.
Okay, so things are improving for you.
Yes, sir.
And I believe you did show up for and give drug tests in December and then again in February,
Yes, sir.
and those were negative.
Yes, sir.
And was it a separate paper, separate and apart from the safety plan that gave custody from you to, or gave possession, care and control, however you want to word it, from you to your mother, Sabrina?
My mother was given temporary custody of my children the day before the safety plan was put into place.
She testified it was on February the 5th.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What kind of paper was that? Is that something that you hand wrote?
And we had it drawn up and was notarized and everything. So,
Okay. Did you keep a copy of that?
yes, sir.
Do you have it there with you?
Yes, sir.
Can you show it on screen? Hold it up?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay. And what does it say at the top?
It says,
Your Honor, I'd object to it. I don't have a copy of this and can't read what that piece of paper said from her holding it in front of the camera. You're muted, Judge.
You're muted, Judge. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I can't see it. If we had a way to screen share it, that'd be one thing, but there's no way to do that without it being uploaded. Mr. Taylor, do you have a copy of it?
I do not, Your Honor. That's why I was asked to read from it.
is there a way that I can send it to my lawyer, the attorney's Gmail?
Well, you can do that, or I guess she can read it.
I don't know how you could email it to me without downloading it first, scanning it and downloading it. I'm not sure you're able to do that.
Okay.
So again, I'll ask you, what's the title to it at the top?
It says temporary custody agreement.
Okay. And it didn't look very long, maybe one very large paragraph. Can you read it for me, please?
Yes, sir. It says, I, Vember May Jeffries, the custodial parent of the following children, Dunn Jeffries, on February the 5th, 2025, I, Vember May Jeffries, place my children in the custody to my mother, Sabrina Louise Jeffries, until I am able and stable to provide a home for my children and to better my physical health. I do hereby give temporary custody to Sabrina Louise Jeffries, my mother and the grandmother of my children, Jeffries, Pineda, Blake Dunn Jeffries. I currently reside at 2200 Southwest 7th Avenue, apartment 213, Amarillo, Texas 79106. Miss Sabrina Jeffries currently resides at 1617 North Highland Street, Amarillo, Texas 79107. I further give permission for Miss Jeffries, my mother, to care for the children in her home and to apply for consent to or otherwise obtain any medical treatment or any economical, social, educational, or other services that the children may need.
And where did you get that language, that particular piece of paper?
And what do you mean by that?
Well, did you type it out yourself or did you get it from someone?
It was typed up.
Okay. And was there a location that you got it from? Did you go online to get it or did you get it from someone?
It was online. We got the paper, the custodial paper from online, but it was typed up.
And when you signed that on, I believe you read the 6th, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Was that before or after you had signed the safety plan on the 6th?
I did not sign the safety plan until we had a family meeting. So it was after my mother had signed. She signed the safety plan before I did.
Okay. I believe she testified she signed it on the 7th.
Yes, and I signed it on a later date. I'm not sure what day it was, but I had a meeting with the CPS, and that's when I signed.
I had understood testimony.
I signed on the 12th, February the 12th.
Okay. I had understood earlier from one of the witnesses' testimony that safety plan was dated the 6th. But your mother has testified she signed it on the 7th, and you're saying you signed it on the 12th.
Yes, sir.
And the children were not removed from your mother until the 21st, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Jeffries, y'all had that drawn up on the 5th. Did you turn that over to the department?
No, my mother had a paper of it. Due to my knowledge, Rashonda, my mother tell Rashonda, but I don't.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive. I believe she answered it with her first statement.
I'll sustain.
And up until today, this is the first any of us have heard that y'all did a custodial agreement, correct?
No, they already knew about it, but they never wanted the paper or anything like that.
Okay. You never showed them the paperwork or gave it to them.
And they never asked for it either.
Now, you stated at the group conference on February 12th, did you admit to having some depression at that time?
Yes, I admitted to being depressed. Yes.
Okay. And are you getting any help with that?
I go through my mother. She has a women's ministry as well as her fiance, and I get help with that. It's a Christian, get help with Christian, the church.
And you said you have a appointment with TPC tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
How come you missed your first assessment on this?
The first assessment, I believe I had got called to work. I'm not really sure. I can't be specific. It was just a lot going on at that time, so I'm not really for sure.
Okay. You understood before you had a vehicle that you had options for transportation through the department?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever, a couple of times, but did you try to avail yourself of that transportation throughout your case?
May I ask, what do you mean by that?
Did you take advantage of that transportation? You missed a lot of appointments with the child, doctor's appointment stuff, and it's all been stated through the testimony that it was due to transportation issues mostly. But you were aware you had options through the department to get the child to where it needed to be.
Yes, when the case first opened and my son had his very first appointment, I did reach out, but Rashonda was not my caseworker at the time. I had another caseworker. I can't think of her name right now, but I did reach out to her, and I have this, and she never came through.
But throughout your case, you missed appointments, but you had options for transportation.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Ms. Jeffries, were you ever able to go over to the apartment on Robert Street to help transport your children anywhere?
Yes, ma'am.
And when was that?
I believe, I'm not sure of the date, but I did take them to school. But that was after the safety plan was put into place.
Okay. So I understand after the safety plan was put in place, the kids missed about 6 or 7 days of school. And then sometime after that, you got a car. And so you took them then?
Yes, ma'am. I did not get a car until the 11th of February. So I had told them in the meeting that I did have transportation and was able to take them to school. But I still had to have my mother with me to take them to school.
So do we think the time you were transporting them from the Roberts address was like 13th, 14th?
Yes, ma'am.
And then when the kids were removed on the 21st, they were removed from that Roberts apartment, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that was February 21st.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's where your mom was living at the time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So why would documents that were drafted on February 5th include the Highland Street address that your mom hadn't even moved to?
My mother, she was in the process of already moving. It just wasn't, she just didn't get a chance to move at the time.
Yes, witness.
Okay, Mr. Taylor, back to you.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I didn't realize I was muted. Then where are you working?
I work at Amazon.
At Amazon. And what are your hours?
I work 40 hours a week.
40 hours a week, not a month.
Yes.
And what days do you work?
I work Monday and Tuesday and Thursday and Friday. And then sometimes I get overtime, so I'll end up working Saturday or Sunday.
So the 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, that you work to get 40 hours a week, you must be working 10 hours a day each of those days, correct?
Hours a day.
Okay. So was it a mistake that caused you to put on your application for court-appointed attorney that you were working 10 hours a week, 40 hours?
I try my best.
I'm sorry, not 10 hours. Yeah. 10 hours a week. Wrote down what that was, and
It was a mistake. Like I said, I had a lot on my mind just due to them removing my children. So I was trying my best to fill out the paperwork, and I may have wrote it wrong.
testimony was that it said 10 hours a week, 40 hours a month. But you're testifying today that was inaccurate, and it's actually 10 hours a day, 40 hours a week.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And I believe you already said it wasn't until around February 11 that you actually got a working car.
Yes, sir.
All right, nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Zavala, do you have a recommendation to make?
I do. I do believe it's in all the children's best interest to remain in the temporary managing conservatorship of the department. I am not opposed to looking at a home study of grandmother's new location and if there's a transportation plan in place in terms of possible placement with grandmother. However, these older kids have already missed a half a year of school. He tells me he loves math when he gets to go. They want to go to school, they want to be there, and doesn't have any leeway in terms of his health stuff. We've got to make sure that he stays above that line. So it may be that grandmother could be an appropriate placement, but under the temporary managing conservatorship of the department.
All right, thank you, Ms. Zavala.
Will the court briefly hear argument?
I will.
Thank you. Your Honor, clearly this is an adversary hearing, and what the court has to find is that there were justification for removal at the time of removal. All of the testimony indicates that Bimber had placed these kids with her grandmother and never violated the safety plan, and that the kids were definitely being well cared for, even was gaining weight, and Dr. Anderson was pleased with it. There was no justification for removal of these children on the 21st. And I would keep it brief. So that's my argument, Your Honor.
Sir, Ms. Riley, any argument?
Judge, I would rest on the record.
All right, Mr. Trout?
Your Honor, I believe that there was justification for the removal of the children. Nobody knew, nobody has still seen any care custody control that mom did. As Ms. Zavala pointed out, the address is 20 days, supposedly 20 days prior to when the grandmother even lived at that address. Mom did not work with the department as far as her prior case with the order to participate. She had missed her drug screen in January. She had not followed up on her appointments. She had not followed up with the child's appointments for his medical needs, and the child ended up hospitalized at one point during this case. And then still sickness after that, and mom still missed visits. Even after the court hearing and when mom knew she was supposed to take the child to the hospital, grandmother was the one who took the child to the hospital. We filed for removal of the children from mom. Grandmother was living in way too crowded of an apartment for these children. If she is in an appropriate housing now and can stay there, as testimony stated with grandmother or from grandmother, she is not aware if she can even be living in that house or if the children can move into that house under the lease. Perfectly happy with a home study to be run on that. I think grandmother has been appropriate, and I think that she did do her best to take care of the children. However, it is the mother's children, and that is who the children were removed from. We did not file for removal against the grandmother. It's a removal against the mother who was not taking care of her children appropriately. Most of her appointments and everything seems to have been great with mom now. Of course, that all happened after the removal because she never complied with any of the order to participate. So we would ask that the children remain in the temporary managing conservatorship of the department and for mom to work services, and would be happy to look at a home study grandmother if under the lease she is allowed to do that. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Zavala, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Unfortunately, at this time, I do find the evidence is sufficient to name the department as the temporary managing conservator of children. The lack of progress that had been made in the underlying TFFS case, the absentee nature of mom's involvement at the time of removal. And in fact, the day before that occurred, we had a hearing and I expressed grave concern about the health and safety of, in particular, Isaiah at that moment. The children's absence from school for 50% of the school year is absolutely unexcusable. I mean, even the ones that are called excused absences, even taking that into account, the number of unexcused absences is absolutely appalling. And, my concern is that it may have put these kids really behind in school. So I think we need really close eyes on those older children to make sure that they're getting caught up educationally. I will find that there would be a continuing danger to return the children home to the mother today. And in fact, it's impossible to return the children to any of the fathers at this time. I will expect parents to work services. Obviously, anything that mom has successfully completed in the underlying TFF case, she's going to be given credit for that. But we just have got to make more progress with respect to stability. I'm not going to order any child support or medical support at this time. And I am fine with ordering an expedited home study on the maternal grandmother. I have the similar concerns just about the lease and what that may do to us. But, I think the problem was not so much with grandmother and the care that she was providing. It was just, there were just too many people in a home. And, there were transportation problems, obviously, because we had absences from school. We had a near missed medical appointment again. So, but I'm willing to take a look at her current situation. So then I will see everybody back for our status hearing on April 22nd of 2025. That's on a 9:00 docket.
If I may ask you to adjust that date just a little, I'm in court in Oldham County all day that day, the 22nd.
I don't know about, as far as our other deadlines and everything, I don't know. We've got so many people involved. Can you have somebody stand in for you that day?
Well, it's done been bumped 3 times to get it to April 22nd. I can certainly try.
Yeah, if you could have somebody, it's a status hearing, if you could have somebody cover, or I'm happy, Mr. Taylor, if you want to submit a written report, you wouldn't be present for your client, but as we all know, it's pretty straightforward what's going to happen at that status hearing. So I just think we've got so many people involved, it's going to be really difficult to try to move that.
Even a day or two. But
I've got 9 other counties to schedule around, and so it's just really difficult.
Thank you.
So I'm going to leave it scheduled on the 22nd, and it's either try to find somebody to stand in, or if you want to file a written report, I'll be happy to accept that.
Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate everybody. Thank you all very much. Hope you have a good rest of your day.